Alrighty. It seems like we are live now. All right. Hello, everybody. We're back with another episode of Flodo. This time I am here actually with Bill Christopher, and I did not rewrite your lower third. Whoopsie. That's not Dudley for everyone that is wondering. So let me just, so I'm here with Bill Christopher, and we are back again with another episode. So, you want to give you a little hello to the audience?
Sure. Hey, how you guys doing today? Good to be here talking with you.
All right, so yes, so we are going to start off. So basically, we're going to talk a little bit about income. Mm-hmm. This talk, I kind of was like, we'll see how income rolls because everyone needs monetary gain. And everyone's kind of looking for monetary gain. I kind of just want to know on your insight from what you've seen so far, just kind of what the state of that is, like how people get it, and just what's the climate for different ways of gaining money for things.
Well, but again, obviously, income's a very broad topic, as you talked about. I mean, income is the above the line that you need. That's where you need to have money in order to operate, right? And your expenses need to be less than your income in order to survive, whether you're a for-profit or a not-for-profit. So that's what you get income is actually have products and services that you're selling to the market that people are buying and providing you money. So you're gathering your income from the business that you're in. So, and again, typically that's either a service that you're selling or a product that you're selling that you're actually bringing money in to receive it. In terms of for startups or expansions or other things you want to do, there are lots of ways you can go about attaining those funds. A big misnomer is there's a ton of free money out there to start for-profit entities. That doesn't exist. There's a lot of money out there in grants for not-for-profits that are doing things that are community-oriented or community-directed, and you can apply for grants. And we'll talk about those in terms of places you can look for grants. But for the most part, if you're starting a business of your own or have a business of your own or thinking about starting a business of your own, if it's a for-profit entity, in other words, you're looking to be making money off of it, paying yourself and living, then there are ways to get funding as well. So traditional banks for loans, SBA, Small Business Administration has a ton of different ways that they provide loans, and their loans are not grants. In other words, typical payback things. Exception to that was obviously during COVID. There was a ton of grants that were given out that were forgiven because federal government dumped trillions of dollars into the market for things like PPP loans and emergency grants and EIDL loans and things like that were some that were tied to payback and some that were not. But that's an anomaly. It's not how it normally operates. Normally, if you have a business concept or a business idea, then I've talked about this before. What you're going to do is you're going to find investors of some sort, right? It could be a relative that's going to invest in you, or it could be the SBA that's going to invest in you really good for it, which turns out to be a bank, which is going to give you a low interest loan that you'll get, and you'll go back and pay that money back over time. Or if it's an investor, likely they're going to want some kind of dividends paid back as well, right? Because they're investing in you with the belief that you're going to give them the money they gave you back plus some on top of it, just like the bank wants you to do for giving it back. So that's kind of that the first thing I tell folks is that if you're expecting free money to start a for-profit entity, you're starting your business in the wrong direction. But there is fund. There are lots of funds out there, though. I mean, so if you're interested in starting a business, there's almost always somebody interested in investing in whatever your business is. So whether you're in agriculture or you're in technology or you're in some new, there's going to be funding out there. Whether it's USDA funding or TEDCO or things like Mid-Shore Regional Council. There are lots of places to go to look for funding to either grow a business or start a business, and to invest in your business to make it grow.
Yeah. Okay. Well, because to jump off, that is very grand in the income space. I know in my little field, it's all right, but I guess let's jump, for ideas, a little bit of bouncing a little bit, because I know a lot of people kind of start thinking, oh, okay, this is like the typical, what if I'm scared to do like a loan or scared to do payback or whatever that other stuff may be? What exactly are maybe some, what do you think the alternate routes would be? Like, I know I would think of a few, like I guess having like a little bit of a following online sometimes, because they sometimes can help you out a little bit in terms of like things like GoFundMe's and stuff like that. So, oh, someone's coming through. It looks like, or is that mail? That might have been mail. But and what do you think about that? Just having a following instead. Do you think that also too? Because
well, again, if you're doing that, in theory, you're providing a service. If somebody's following you, the reason they're following you is because you're providing some form of service to them for them giving you money, right?
Yeah.
In terms of, it's going to be rare that people are just going to go donate money so that Julian can run a business because I like him and I'm not expecting anything back for it. So you will see some of that, and you'll see GoFundMe's online, and people get involved in those things. But it's typically not a strategy you're going to want to try to run a business on, because one, you're not going to get a ton of money that way, and whether or not you're going to get enough to really support your business or not is also questionable. And you still have to pay taxes on that, right? Because you're actually taking income in if you're a for-profit entity. So a lot of folks don't bother to claim that money, and then they get in trouble later because they didn't claim what they actually got from, because they think GoFundMe is free.
Yeah.
But if you're a for-profit entity, and that's how and people are giving you money that way through the internet because for whatever reason they think again, they're giving it to you for some reason, right?
Yes.
In terms of this is not an entity that's actually just providing you cash. So I would just make sure that whoever's giving you money, you understand why they're giving it to you and what their expectations are for it in return. Because typically you're either selling a service or a product to get income, or you're getting money that you're going to be paying back.
Okay.
Unless you find, again, an angel donor that just says, hey, I just want to give you $10,000 to go start your own business, and I don't really care that I ever get it back. That's rare.
Yeah, that's very extreme.
You'll find family members that do that, and the rich uncle or some, again, somebody that's out there. But even the term angel investors, they typically are looking for the payback of their money.
Yeah.
Right. They're investing, but their investment comes with the expectation that it's going to get repaid with some profitability on it. So if they gave you 10,000, they're expecting to get 15,000 back, right, over time, in terms of what the investment terms are for doing that. But yeah, the internet is an interesting place. There are people that are making millions doing TikTok videos, right?
Yeah.
And get paid for it, because ultimately that then translates into advertising, right? You get enough followers on social media, then basically advertisers then want to start having you promote their products, and then you start making income that way. But again, you're now providing a service to get the income. It's not just somebody handing you money. Again, as a not-for-profit entity, if you're going to be doing good for the community and you're providing a service, there are lots of places to go ask for money that is just given to you, right? But it's given to you with strings that you have to use it a certain way. So again, they don't just give it to you and say, hey, go do whatever you want with this. You're actually you're writing a grant request and saying, I'm going to use this money to do X, Y, and Z. And the expectation is you're going to do that with that money. But you don't have to pay it back, right? So it is a grant, and then there's a lot of money in the not-for-profit world for that. You will find, again, earmarks coming out of the government where they actually do things that, where they will actually give money to a for-profit entity because they think it's good for the environment. But that's rare, and it's Congress.
Yeah.
So you can follow through those guys and see what they do with that. But again, that's not a business model you want to use to build your business necessarily. Certainly a way to go and try to get the income, and they'll put it forward. Most of the time, again, they're looking for community-based things that are going to yield and give back to the community, not just line the pocket of someone that's going to be a for-profit business.
Yeah, because to jump a little bit somewhere else, I guess. Let's think about in terms of let's see, because I want to jump ship a little bit to a different topic. I want to jump over to, why don't we talk about what we were talking about a little bit earlier with technology. So before the stream, we were talking a little bit, just getting to know each other a little bit. He mentioned that he worked in the, developing programs for healthcare systems and all that. But we were talking a little bit about because in this world of technology, I think it should be more implemented. We're talking more on the lines of why not? Talking about creating systems that that transfer data to different like areas. And it struck me because he said that if you could reiterate, because I don't want to mess up what you were saying.
Well, again, in the healthcare space, it's been tough to share data between disparate systems. So again, if you get healthcare here and then you go to Florida on vacation and you fall and break your leg and have to go to a different hospital, the hospital is not going to know anything about you, and it's going to be very difficult for them to get data about you. And it doesn't need to be that way, right? I mean, technology, they should be able to request your data, get your data. Problem is we don't have a universal medical ID number. So it's, I got to verify I'm getting Julian's data, not, Julian from Cambridge, not Julian from East Newmarket or Julian from Cambridge, Massachusetts, as opposed to Cambridge, Maryland, right? So without a unique identifier, it's really tough to be able to do that. And the systems, while significant improvements have been made in the last 10 years, we were 40 years behind where technology was 10 years ago in terms of what we were allowed to share and how we could share that information so that if we could provide better care for patients. I mean, it was
because when I heard that little snippet, I was like, I wonder why we don't do that in the education system. Just because as everyone knows, the education system still very much so, in my opinion, lagging behind in the world of technology, not really using it to the best of their ability. Why not have those types of like benchmarks sort of ideals where everyone just kind of like gets like a general consensus of where this person is at? Because I know there's the grading system and everyone's like, oh yeah, you have an A here or a B there, but it's not that specific. I feel like with technology, you can like literally you can get it down to why they have an A in math or why they could have a B or C in some other like reach. Because in my opinion, the way that people are graded is very much the way, in my opinion, way too general. Because like you can be good at math, but you don't know exactly, I guess, what part of math you're like good at. Like that, when you have an A, that generally means you're probably good at all facets of math. And then someone with a C means they're probably okay at some facets. But I feel like, why don't we focus on the fact that they may not be good at a specific area? We look at that data and then we can kind of like help, I guess, move along or help develop them for like a certain career path that they might be wanting to take. That could be a reason why they do well in certain subjects versus others. What do you think about that one?
So two things on that. Yeah, technology can definitely help, but you got to be careful not to take the human aspect out of it, because these are still developing minds. And that's what teachers are there for, right? Is to kind of help. You don't want to like make everything be ones and zeros, right? Because humans aren't ones and zeros. So you can't necessarily tell everything that way. So you can definitely look for trends. We definitely can follow, to your point, the trajectory that the student has had throughout their career and what they're doing. But I hate to actually have a computer try to make the decision as to whether or not you're going to be a doctor or you're going to be a surfboarder, right? Because just based on what it thought you were learning. So some of that really needs to be, we need to have good educators, which we do, that are kind of helping to mold and understand what the students are. The grading system, some things are black and white, can be graded that way. Some things are not. Some things do need to have, there's subjectivity that needs to be in there, and the teacher needs to understand the student and where the student's coming from in terms of as they're deciding how they get graded and what direction they want to push them in or where area they want them to go. So, I definitely agree with you. We can use a lot more in the way of technology. And like we talked about with students moving around as they go from school to school to school, having that information would be extremely valuable to the next teacher if it was somewhat standardized and the teachers understood what it was as they were translating, as the data was moving, so that if you moved from here to Cambridge, Massachusetts, you weren't starting all over with the teachers trying to figure out who you are, right? And so, which also don't be pigeonholed into, what somebody else may have thought. So you got to be a little bit careful with that, but definitely I think you could do more in sharing the data. And basically I think the pandemic's going to force them into that, because again, students now, a lot of their work is done online, and they continue that, right? So now more and more of their work is being done online, and you actually have more and more access to data, and the more data you have access to, the more you can do with it, right? Again, the volume of data gives you much better predictability, right? You know, little data, you can kind of guess. A lot of data, you start nailing down what's really possible.
Yeah, so I guess to jump off of that point, because yes, I don't want it to be like the path that they're taking will predetermine. I was just mainly saying, like, you know, like you're looking at it and they say, well, I want to be this or this and such as like that, versus like, you know, don't want the computer saying 100%, but I kind of want it to like work together with certain things, I guess, kind of sort of, because I was like, that should really honestly be already implemented in my opinion, because like I was saying, video games do it a lot. Matchmaking, they check your skill level, match you up with other players and such as like that, which I was kind of had me going. And then I was thinking like, I'm curious about how could someone make a system like that? How could that be gone about to like create it? That's kind of why I wanted to.
Well, again, it's standard software development, right? You're going to requirements gathering, you know, software development, testing, circle back through again, right? In terms of understand, you won't get it right the first time. In fact, you won't get it right the first 30 or 40 times in terms that you go through, especially something like this, because you're talking about building some AI into this, right? Because it's really unique. So again, and artificial intelligence is all built on data, built on volume, right? Volumes and volumes of data, because that's how computers learn, right? The more data you give them, the more they learn. So the more data we have over time, the more input we have, the more we can see, the more we can predict. And the computer will be right more often than it's not, ultimately, because it doesn't have emotion in it. But again, when you're talking about students and children and developing minds, emotion still needed. So that's where I think even as you got this thing running, you're gonna have the humans intervene, teachers intervene to understand that this is what it says, but maybe is 100% accurate. Let's figure it out. But it could definitely help students, get them placed or their trajectory better than we do today, in terms of where they're at and what they should be studying and what they might be interested in, or saying, hey, you may want to go take a look at this based on everything we're seeing you do. You may be the next microbiologist that comes up with a vaccine that stops all COVID forever, right? And so if you could help students understand those traits and those skill sets, that would be great. So I think to build something like that, again, there are products out there that already do things like that, and, that are already doing, that are analyzing people's skill sets, and businesses have been using it for a long time in terms of testing that happens when you job interviews at some of the bigger firms, in terms of what you do, in terms of both testing your personality and your skill sets. That you could actually bring in and build off of. But I think the big thing is gathering data for what they're learning in the classroom and how they're producing, with actually feeding that data in would be interesting, and then understanding what that means. But again, it's going to take a long time for you to build a data set big enough to be able to start doing some predicting.
Yeah, because because when I heard you talking about that, I was like, that kind of could have been started like ways back, and I feel like it probably already has been started. But I was thinking like, why hasn't it been continually implemented? Like we think back a little bit. Let's think back to social media. The term probably social media. You probably weren't thinking about it while you were growing up. You probably weren't going to think that there was going to be like a profile on the internet that you post to that can give people a general sense of who you are, and people can like look it up and sort of. Which I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, okay, that's like one way of doing it, which is very I won't say very effective, but is effective to a point where now everyone is kind of like, everyone has social media presence, everyone's using it, I'm using it even, but because then you said the bad apples, it being used also in that like negative sense, which we don't want, but can happen. Reason why I started talking about that was mostly I was kind of thinking like, what was I about to say? To say something and I lose it again. I am getting bad at that. But
again, going back to your social media though, that's a good example of, the tools are already doing that, right? So if I actually do a search for, a rake on Google, the next time I'm on Amazon, it's showing me rakes, even though I don't ask for them, right? So they're capturing my patterns, and they know what to show me when when I'm on Facebook or when I'm in shopping. They know what to be popping up in the ads, right? Because they've actually studied everything that I've ever done on anywhere in my browser. Anything that I've searched for has all been stored, so they've already built a pretty good profile of what I'm shopping for. And so those are the ads that show up when I'm looking, not generic ads that I'm not necessarily going to look at. Not that I look at them anyway, but it's still amazing to me that in terms of how fast they're actually able to make that kind of thing happen in terms of from the time of one search to it. Now it's like pervasive. So just be careful what you search for. Because show up in your profile.
Yeah, because I was gonna say that's the personalized ad site, which I was kind of thinking. That's why I was thinking to myself, why hasn't that already happened in the schooling system? Because we already have the technology. All we have to really do is implement it. And the reason why I guess so much of the data that is found and why they can do those kind of sort of links is because they get results like 10 gazillion results or how many they get like every single day, like every day. And when you search up a rake, there has probably been like 10 gazillion other people that search rake, and then they have a second search, and that's what Google also shows you, which I'm kind of thinking, why haven't we already done that for the schooling system? Because there are a ton of students that go to school, and practically everyone kind of goes around the sort of same time, and information is always being transferred always at the same time. And it made me kind of start thinking, like, all we have to do is really implement that, and then it's kind of just over with I guess that site technology, just doing that. Because me going back a little bit, because like I said, I kind of don't like how general it is, one, and two, it's kind of like let's see, it doesn't really show too much of what a student really can do. Because I'll say, at least in my time of being schooled, it was kind of like, you're bad at math, you're not going to be successful type ordeal. And I kind of want to like stop that little mindset of, you're bad at this, you're not going to do like I was bad at math, yes, but there were like areas that I was really good at, like geometry, and I was pretty okay at fractions too, which as I grew, I started realizing why that is, because I work in 3D software programs like literally every single day. So I'm dealing with geometry every day. I know like the whole, quick what's across from like 0, which is 180, and then what's across from 90, 270, that sort of ordeal, which why I started talking about that was mostly like there is use for everything, and I kind of just feel like it should be implemented more. Now, I know I'm sitting here trying to think. I have various other topics that I probably should start pulling up on my phone, but yeah, I guess because now I want to jump a little bit back into the whole. I guess I know we were talking a little bit about income. I wanted to bounce back to that a little bit, just talking now about how to use it effectively. Like, we have projects around, because I wanted to jump in this different world of income and how it is being used in our city, and what type of like income do we have. I don't exactly know where you are at with city projects or what gets like approved here. I don't know if that's mostly like a city thing.
We're not, I mean, from a chamber, we're not a government body or entity. We're a membership organization. So we work with the city, work with the county, and provide input from the business community and all, but we don't have any direct say. I mean, so the city has multiple sources of income in terms of what they bring in. That's the government, right? So in terms of what they get, tax people, when people stay at the Hyatt, they pay a tax. That tax gets paid to the city for staying here. So they get income from that. They have property taxes. They get, from the business tax. They get licensed. Basically, somebody wants a permit, so they get income coming in that way. MUC, whether you get water or sewer, that's all income that's coming into the city. They get money right now, again, back to COVID. So there's ARPA funds that the city and the county get that they'll be using to distribute as well. So there's multiple places that the city actually gets income from in terms of where they do. And the city also gets grants. So they'll get money. DHCD has put a ton of money into Cambridge. A lot of those grants come through the city. They may also come through a not-for-profit. So there's grant funding that's available that the city gets for doing various programs that they get. They get money from the state, clearly, obviously, the state budget for, working on roads and other things that the state pays for. And then there's federal funds that come in as well. So city gets money from lots of different sources.
I am curious because I'm like, because the reason why I say this is because I'm jumping back a little bit to a previous episode. What about some of those funds being used for like the arts, more for like the arts, like I guess well, I know you're not exactly the city, so because all you can probably do is just like suggest, but I assume that you probably have seen how some of it works. I probably would have to ask actual city person, but how would that go about? Like, because around here, a lot of us like to say that, you know, most of it, I don't exactly know what most of it could be spent on, but I kind of feel like there isn't really too much use in it with the arts. I don't know how that would work out, but I wanted to know, like, what would a budget look like for the arts? Is there like any money in it for that?
Well, I mean, I mean, I think a lot of people don't even realize how much art is done here versus other places in other cities, right? I think people that live here don't realize that we have more murals probably than most towns in the state of Maryland, definitely probably in the country. We have one of the top muralists here that helps with that, but we also have murals that he hasn't done. So there's a whole lot of public art that's been done. You got the Dorchester Center for the Arts in terms of what it does. We actually have an A&E district here that a lot of people don't take advantage of and aren't aware of. We probably don't advertise it as much as we should, but literally there's an A&E district that's drawn. It's very similar to the Main Street districts, a little bit different in terms of where the borders are, but any art that's created or sold in that district doesn't have to pay any sales tax. So to attract artists into that space to work, as an example, and there's money that comes in to help with that program. You know, DCA does a lot of art education that's not full. I mean, so they can actually do more in terms of people. They can handle more folks coming in to work with that. So I think there's probably more funding available for the arts than we could actually use right now in terms of depending on what you're defining as art. So there's if you just look at the murals per square mile inside the city, we got a lot of them.
Yes, I have seen a lot of them.
Yeah, I mean, you get the statue that's being worked on now that you know that Alphagenesis is doing. I mean, there's a lot of grant funding that's going into that. That's you know, a $250,000 statue that's going to go on the courthouse lawn, which is pretty exciting to get things like that done. So, I mean, I think you see that there is artwork that's being done. I mean, it doesn't mean there can't be more, but there is quite a bit already. What we need is, you know, the artists that are there that want to do it, and where it makes sense to get that done and step up. But I think there's been definitely an appetite from the public, and again, from artist standpoint, there's usually you can find grant work for that. In terms, like, most of the murals were paid for by grant funding or by state funding that came in to pay for that work to be done. At the one on Chesapeake College, I think PNC was the primary sponsor for that, but again, they had other folks that actually helped put money in to get that one done. So there are places to find money for art. I mean, I know DCA gets grants for their programs that they go out and apply for to run their programs where they're teaching adults and children art during the summer, and you know, when they run their classes and so forth. There are ones you pay to attend, but they also have scholarships where folks that can't afford to pay can attend.
Yeah, because I was gonna jump onto, because I had somebody say it would be cool if someone just had a casual $3 billion to like build an actual like more performance space for like plays and like music performances type area. I don't know exactly how that would work.
That would be cool. I mean, again, before we moved here, we had just outside DC, so we had season tickets, and we were in DC seeing a play at least once a month. So those type of things are really cool. It'd be nice to do. But to your point, you have to have an audience. You have to have somebody that's willing to pay for that. Those things are not inexpensive. And so you'd have to find someone that was a benefactor that wanted to, because most of those, if you look at a lot of the theaters, their startup in the backgrounds, or they are not for profits typically. And they have benefactors that help keep them afloat, unless you're like a Warner Theater and you draw in the big acts and charging $200 for a ticket. But something like that would be really cool to have. I mean, and there's been some theater groups around here that have done some things over time and did some performance things, but to have a venue that could handle concerts and things like that would be nice. I mean, Salisbury has the Civic Center that's transformable into various different things. They do stuff there, but they don't fill that up all the time either. Right now, they're trying to work on getting it busier, and they have a larger population than we do. So the question about an entertainment venue like that is, do you have enough people, or do you have a regional draw that you can draw enough people in to keep it full, in terms of where we're at? And if you look at the population, so we'd have to draw from probably Annapolis and then maybe as far as Dover to be able to draw a circle big enough to be able to have the population to say, yes, we could have a theater that we're going to have full enough of the time to actually make it profitable by itself versus having a benefactor that just says, hey, I want to support the arts, so I'm going to give you a ton of money and you can run this thing and have as many programs as you can in it. But if it's not self-sustaining, then I'm not going to shut it down.
Because in my little talks from when talking to that little spot, because there's a lot of young artists around here, and it kind of feels, at least some of the talks we were having, it kind of feels like that there isn't really too much advertised. Like you did say, you feel like certain areas aren't really being as advertised in the arts way. And the reason why I bring that up is because I'm thinking to myself, well, what would be a good way to kind of start? Let's start brainstorming here. What would be some kind of good ways to start, getting more people to know about the arts district around here? Because so far we're mostly very heavy on the history, not so much really the modern arts. Pushing forward for people who might be interested in photography, or people who want to do concerts and such as like that, big performances. Because around here, it's like, it is understandable, like from hearing what you were saying, which it has to have like a huge crowd, and there has to be like a performance, like you said, like probably every single week.
Well, if you're gonna have a big venue like you were talking about, then because there's some things they need, they need to be fed, right?
Yeah.
You're gonna have a venue that's that's gonna seat 10,000 people, then you need to be putting people in it a lot. So you need to figure out what kind of venue you can support.
Yeah, because I was probably thinking more, because I know I probably should have specified it. I was thinking more maybe on like a smaller scale venue, see how that would do. I know we have areas around here, and we are even at the station. We're also doing a lot of like performances here, and sometimes I do notice when advertised very well or is known very well, it fills up really quick, and there is like not only does it fill up really quick, but people want it to happen more often. But the issues we run into a lot of the time is usually it's scheduling, and then sometimes monetary, which is why I want to talk about income, because it's I guess figuring out how to keep it like going. 'Cause I know and advertised well enough so that people can continue to keep going. Because currently, I feel anyway, and I guess certain other people feel like there isn't, too much really backing the arts. It is mostly kind of self-supported in some sense of the word. But what are some ways that we think that we could probably get it more known, I guess?
Well, if you're shifting to performance arts, I mean, there are some things going on. There's potentially going to be a studio out at the Packing House to help people actually do from that type of performance art. I mean, we have some venues in the county that we don't fill up. I mean, the amphitheater, the outdoor venue that could seat 3,000 people. I don't think we've ever been able to get more than 500 or 600 people in it. As many times as we tried to fill it up. We had concert series that we ran multiple times a few years back. We would do a concert a month, and it was tough to attract the folks to come to watch, and we weren't charging for those. Those were free, free concerts. So some of it is to making sure you understand what the audience is and what they want and what what they need to attract them in. And so, I mean, that could be part of the challenge. Not even so much funding is that, we had the funding for those. We ran, like I say, I think it was 8 or 9 concerts one year. And I think the most people we got at one of those concerts was 300. So we clearly weren't providing whatever it is the community wanted, or that's what the community can support, is about 300 people coming to an event. And if that's the case, then it becomes a little bit of a challenge in terms of, when you say, are you supporting the arts or not, and performing arts, does the community want to come out and see performing arts? So
that is the hard part.
I think that's part of the challenge, is finding out what the community wants, and that's what you need to deliver to get them in. Now, sometimes the community doesn't know what it wants, right?
Yeah.
I mean, the community didn't know it wanted an iPad, right? And so Apple created one and created demand for it. So you can also, from a performing arts standpoint, create the demand by creating the art and having people come out. I mean, I mean, you got the concerts that are going on now, the jazz concerts that have been running at the Mural that are happening fairly regularly. Art Bar 2.0 is doing performance art inside Art Bar 2.0. Several of the restaurants downtown have live music on a regular basis to have folks come in to see those. Plays are a little different. I mean, I just think it's tough. I mean, they've tried doing that a few times. They just can't get the attendance, right? Even the two Senior Fest plays, which do well, but their draw is they've got parents and brothers and sisters and teachers, and everybody wants to come see them. And so I think some of the challenge there is verifying that what you're putting on is what the community wants to see, not funding. I mean, it could be a funding issue, but I think we could find funding if we actually had what it is that you thought the community wanted to see, and it would bring people out in large volumes.
Yeah, because I was gonna say, because I guess my little notion to that, because I was thinking like, we're in the world of the internet, and a lot of the performances, like live streaming and stuff like that, it's internet. But I like to, for me anyway, I like to not only just appeal to local scene, but kind of to like that broader scene to kind of get people to come out, because yes, the internet, awesome as it is and very convenient as it is, it doesn't give, I guess, the full extent. Like, people still go to see concerts and various other things.
Right.
Reason why I bring that up is because I feel like, well then, because hearing all that, I'm like, I hear mostly it's about advertising and showing that it's there. I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, maybe it could be the put out, I guess. I don't know.
It could be the advertising, or it could be the product. Right?
Yeah.
I mean, if what you're delivering isn't what the community wants, they're not going to come, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I think we advertised the heck out of those concerts that I talked about. I mean, we put them everywhere we could possibly put them. I mean, banners on the street. We, advertised in the newspaper, advertised social media. We did email blast. We were on the radio. And so clearly the product we were delivering wasn't what the community wanted. And so I think part of that would be figuring out what does the community really want, so that you can deliver it, that you can get them out in volume, or expand your community, right?
Yeah.
Expand your draw.
That's what because I was going to ask that. Like, what if we change it up a little bit? Because I thought back to the summer when I was doing when we were moving around a lot, and that the big highway that gets you across we're one of the stops to get to Ocean City.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of people that come through. I kind of was thinking we should have like something to kind of bring people to think that we are Ocean City. Because I say this because that summer there was a group of bikers who came off at a gas station. They stopped and we overheard them, and one of them said, "Are we in Ocean City?" And I was like, this is nowhere near Ocean City. So I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, if they think this is Ocean City, I'm thinking, what if we kind of had more appeal for the younger audience, as well as the older audience a little bit, in a sense, because I will say, for me anyway, a lot of it seems to be in my circle. It seems like that we don't have too much for the younger folks, like people like me. Like we do have certain amenities and certain cool things, but like earlier, like I had one of my shows, someone came into the radio station, I was doing my show, and they said, this could be a pretty good space to make a YouTube video. And that's what it hit me. I was like, a YouTube video? Like, sure, this is a radio station, but we're a media station in general. But I think a lot of people kind of think radio, and it's only radio, which isn't the case. I'm live streaming. I'm doing we're doing various other shows that aren't live streaming, doing things with video and suches, which kind of made me think, like, are we only thinking? Do you think that we're thinking too mainstream? Do you think we're kind of advertising it? I guess, do we think everyone understands what these facilities can be used for? Do you think that could be a thing?
Oh, no, I don't. No, I don't think we were at anywhere near our potential at this point. I think we have a lot more potential, and I think we have folks that are working on that. And I think that we can definitely make more progress in terms of things that we're looking to do. I mean, let's use the cruise lines as an example. I mean, it wasn't that many years ago when we were only getting 3 ships a year, right? I mean, we get 20 now, right? Because they saw the potential and the value of coming here. So I mean, basically they've had a huge influx of what they're wanting to do come here. In terms of you touching on things for the youth, we hear that a lot. So that the answer we get back every time we hear it is, what do you want though? Right?
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
It's the harder part.
So you want more, that's great. Okay.
Yeah,
but
but
what
you're
is it that you want? Because if you go and build it, but you don't come, then so really what we need is some help in terms of understanding what it is that the youth community wants. We've built sports programs and things like that. We've done parks, we've done different things have been done. So what is the thing that we need to build that so folks say, oh yeah, this is a really cool place to be. Because I think there are folks that be willing to do that. The question is, what is it?
Exactly.
So if you can get your a group of folks together to say this is the thing or the things that would be that would make it so we would say, oh yeah, Cambridge is a great place for young people. That would be I don't think you'd have anybody push back on saying, yeah, we want to do that. The question is, what is it? So a lot of things have been tried, and so far they haven't been the one that's, I guess, been the
thing catches the bait.
That says yes, that's it. That's what everybody's looking for, and it could be everybody's looking for something different, right?
Yeah.
That basically, there's not a silver bullet, but maybe there's a few bronze ones that we can use to set some things up that would be helpful. And so I think feedback into the city and the county, and I know folks like Mike Diaz and Parks and Rec are working on that regularly. He's constantly thinking about things that would actually work for the youth. I mean, we got Boys and Girls Club has come in now in terms of what they're looking to do and expanding areas and that in terms of programs for the younger population. And then we have folks that are looking at the teen and the 20s, but we need help saying what is it that they want to do, right? What is it that they're actually looking for that the city or town or other people can provide.
And that is why I started the show, is to get those questions out. Because that's why, I'll say this, that's because I see a lot of shows that aren't like, kind of with this type of style, the vibe that I'm trying to go for. And that's why I created it. So this is why I'm asking, you, because it's kind of hard, because for me anyway, because I remember when I tried to start the e-bike thing, and I was asking like many questions. And I will say it kind of hit like I did hit a weird rut for a little bit, but then the scooter thing popped up. But the reason why I'm saying that is because what would you say to someone that's like in a rut about that? Because they ask for the help, but they don't exactly sometimes know where to continue to go with it. Like,
yeah, I mean, again, if you got a great idea, then follow it. And again, as if you listen to Edison or everybody else, failure is a whole part of the process, right? And the person who didn't make it is likely just didn't know that if they tried one more time, they were going to, right?
Yeah.
And so keep trying, right? So you get help from folks that have the skills and the background that, but don't let folks talk you out of it. If you believe it's going to work, there's always going to be a lot of negative. That's my job as part of it. And from a finance standpoint, I'm going to sit down with you and say, to your point, let's look at your income. Let's look at your expenses. And if your expenses exceed your income, you can do that for a little while, but you can't do it for very long.
Yeah.
Right. So whatever your idea is, you got to make sure that you can figure out how you're going to pay for it. And that's whether you're a for-profit or a not-for-profit or whatever. But once you get past that, if you believe, right. And, again, I get back to, there's lots of examples that, that's how things get invented, right? People don't know you need those things, right? The wheel didn't used to be a wheel. Somebody invented a wheel at some point, right? So you roll things around, in terms of, looking at computer technology, and as you were talking about earlier, that changes, so rapidly in terms of what you can and can't do with that technology. So if you've got an idea and you have a concept, follow it, right? And push it, to the point where, even if you fail a couple of times, you may want to go at it and stay at it. But you have also use some degree of reality that you don't put yourself or your family in like some strange place and at risk. If you're calling it a rut and you're trying the same thing over and over again, definition of insanity, if you same thing over and over and expect a different result, change what you're doing a little bit, right? Do it slightly differently, try a slightly different approach. And I'm sure that's how you're doing the bird things, right?
Yeah.
I mean, they have a system in place that learns where they should go, right? And they learn where they shouldn't go, right?
Yeah.
So, they actually have built that technology that just says, put them here, doesn't really make any sense. Or putting them here, they get used, but they don't come back, so don't put them there again. Right?
Yeah.
So that's the technology that's out there. Use that same kind of learning with whatever it is that you're going at. If you take 6 steps forward and try to figure out what caused the failure, then start over. That's kind of what life is, right? But now you can apply it to business or creating things. And there are folks that are creative and come up with grand ideas. And like I say, back to what do young folks need here? Somebody knows what that is. Somebody's going to come up with that great idea, and we're going to have whatever. If I knew what it was, I'd say. But I'm an old fogey. I don't know what 20-year-olds want.
Yeah.
I knew what I wanted when I was 20 years old. That's different now. The world's a very different place. So what is it that you want, and somebody will figure that out at some point, and hopefully they figure it out, and it's here, right? And then we actually, because we need to stop the drain of talent, right? That's kind of what we need to keep talent here. So we need to keep folks that are highly skilled and qualified in the area. We have lots of really good jobs here. A lot of folks don't believe that, but we do. That are just going unfilled because folks with skills and talent leave the area because they're told they have to, right? If they want to be successable, you got to leave. Or if you want to have something to do, because we don't have anything to do for young people, you got to leave. So, we got to stop the misnomer that there's no jobs. There's a lot of really good qualified jobs, a lot of really cool businesses here. And if it isn't, start one, right?
Yeah.
If the cool thing you want to do isn't here, start it, right?
Yeah.
Figure it out, go get it started and bring that business here. But if there's activities or things we need to do to help the next generation want to stay here, we need to know what that is, and then we need to help the city and county and elected officials figure out how to get those things put in place so we actually have them.
Yeah, because going back a little bit, because me being one of those young people being told to leave, I did consider it very much so a lot, and I'm not gonna lie, I did almost leave because I do have family in the city, so I was probably gonna go live with them. But what stopped me was the station and figuring things out. Which the reason why I say that is because, and then the advertising in the arts was, yes, it was advertised to me, but the story I always tell people is that I was the only person on that list in the school. And that thing was at the front desk where everyone saw it.
Right.
And I was the only one to actually know about it, which is strange because the teacher that told me about it had students go there also last year because it was I was in a graphics arts class. So then he told me about it and I was like, oh, okay, let me try it out. I still find it weird to this day. So it makes me think, well, then does that mean that it's not being put out enough, or is it all in the wrong circles? Because every internet circle is different. Like my internet circle is different from your internet circle. Like what I think is weird could be normal for you, and what you think is weird could be normal to me.
Right.
So that's why I'm wondering, that's why I was wondering about the whole outreach thing. Do we have like, when you're working with people, are we working with multiple circles? Do we that's why I kind of want to also start the show, is I want to get everybody hopefully on one day, and we can all get our opinions out, and hopefully with one show they share it within their circle, and then hopefully you get back to the YouTube page, you're back in it. But
unfortunately we've proven this over and over again. There's not a single good way to advertise.
Yes.
You've got to do a lot of different things. Everybody gets the information differently.
Yes.
Short of going out and knocking on the 15,653 doors that exist in Dorchester County and knocking on the door and saying, hey, we have a concert next Friday. There's no way you're going to have everybody know that you're having a concert next Friday. And we do lots of things, using the school as an example. So our scholarship that we do, we just awarded our scholarships last week. We awarded $35,000 to 11 students. But the number of students that apply for that amazes me how few it is. That means money that we're giving away lots of money, and students that say they need money to go to school aren't applying. And so why not? They're saying, well, I didn't know about your scholarship. Well, I mean, to your point, we advertise with the guidance counselors at the school. We advertise with the different programs at the school. We advertise on Facebook. We advertise on Instagram. We're on the radio. We're in the newspaper. We send out e-blast. We reach out to the booster clubs. I mean, who else do we need to tell so that people would say, oh, I know you have a scholarship? There's only so mean, that is a challenge in terms of how, because I think part of that is there's so much noise.
Yes.
That how do you break through the noise? So the only way to break through the noise, you got to find out what it is that people are interested in, and you got to piggyback on it somehow. Right.
Yeah.
Which is,
Kind
that's
of
what the guys are trying to do with the rakes that we talked about earlier, right?
Yeah.
They're basically trying to figure out what I'm interested in,
Yeah.
and then putting that in front of me so that I might actually pay attention to what they're telling me. And so in terms of how you get that information out, it's you solve that problem, you'll be a millionaire.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, it's probably what Zuckerberg is kind of doing with Facebook, right? To a certain degree. I mean, that's how a lot of people, that's how they get their information, right?
Yeah. Or
Right?
Jeff
Not
Bezos.
rightfully. It's not the great place just for you guys to get your information that way. It's not the best way to get your information.
Yeah.
But there are folks that, that's how they get their information. So you got to piggyback on it in order to get the information to them. But you got to figure out what the other mediums everybody else is using, whether it's Snapchat or, Instagram or whatever the next cool application is that's on the phone, or is it their group, to your point? Is it their circle of friends? Although that was how it operated when I was younger, right? That's how you, because we didn't have these smartphones and we didn't have so you basically, it was this, you would have to cross circles of friends in order to be able to get information circulated, and it worked. I think we've lost that. I don't think people know how to or understand how to do that anymore in terms of person to person communication has somewhat been lost.
Internet.
Yeah, everybody's saying, well, if I put it on Facebook, everybody should know. I mean, I've actually heard people say that. I posted it on Facebook. Everybody should know. I was like, let's go look and see how many people that post reach. Oh, 136. So it reached 136. And that doesn't mean all 136 looked at it. That just meant it showed up in 136 feeds, which means they could have scrolled by it. So no, not everybody knows it because you posted it on Facebook. But we seem to be getting to that kind of society, and we get angry when people don't know that we're trying to tell them. So you got to use every medium possible to share your data, to share what it is you're trying to get out. We need, to your point, we need people to expand their circle. And operate in more than one circle, because that also helps. If you operate in this circle and this one, then you're the conduit that helps connect other people. So try to be more broad with who you actually connect with, and try not to be so narrow in that will actually help with sharing information as well. But yeah, if you can solve the question of how you get again, we're a small county of 32,000 people, right? Again, we were 32,000 people when I was born. We're 32,000 people now. Different 32,000 for some of them, but some of them are the same. But think about how small we are, and we can't get word out to 32,000 people. So it's hard to actually communicate what it is you're trying to get the word out, whether it's a concert or trying to understand what the youth wants to have. What do we need for the 20 years olds to get done? But it starts with face-to-face conversation and people talking to each other and getting engaged. So that's the other problem, is people need to be engaged. It's a big issue. I mean, we're probably not going to talk about elections today, but those are coming up. That's a topic you should spend a lot of time on coming up, because that is huge for how we solve some of these problems that you're talking about, right? How money gets spent, what money gets spent on the arts, what businesses are encouraged to come, which are not, what happens with the community. And that's, the elected officials that are going to be put in office on this next election will actually drive that.
So because I'm gonna jump back a little bit to the whole advertising thing. I'm gonna say one advertisement that I am going to say that works, in my opinion, that seems to work all the time, is just kind of making it flashy, I guess, sort of ordeal. Because the reason why I say that is because I look around this town. Not all of it's so flashy, in my opinion. A lot of it, you kind of actually have to look at a said building in order to know what the building is sometimes. And for me anyway, and being young, kind of doesn't work all the time. You're just kind of walking by the building, it exists, but you don't know what it is, type of a deal. So I'm kind of curious a little bit in that sense, using it for that type of a purpose. I shouldn't say what to do, because I kind of have an idea of what to do, but I'm curious about trying to update, I guess. How do you think updating Cambridge, in a sense, could go? Not not like obviously overhauling, making the buildings like as nice as they are, but giving them a little more pizzazz. Like if I was to say, hey, well, let's do something to kind of bring more people to know that your building actually exists, I guess, type of ordeal. Because I will say, when the scooters popped up, a lot of people started realizing businesses existed because, their phones were dying or they needed a place to stop. And they would go in, they're like, oh, I didn't even know this place existed. Because I got a lot of calls from businesses saying that the clientele is very much so now broader because there's more people that they don't know how to deal with because, it was a different crowd and sort of stuff, which I was like, that should be kind of good type of ordeal because now they're getting exposed. But then they said, that it wasn't like working out or whatever. But if they kept going there, they probably sooner or later be like, hey, I want to check this out. So what do you think about updating? How do you think about doing like a small update thing?
Well, a couple things there. One is so there are several regulations and things you're gonna have to work around with that. So we are a historic town. So there's a historic preservation group that actually decides what you can or can't do to change what a building looks like. So any building that's historic, you can't make changes to it and then there's also a whole set of rules around signage, what you can and can't do with signs. And what, in terms, so you'd have to work within the guidelines of those things, or you'd have to go to the city to get those kind of rules changed in terms of what's being done. So that actually restricts some of the, like, just kind of rebranding some of those buildings because you really can't change the signage in terms of what you have on them. And again, if it's a historic building, what you can or can't do to it is kind of controlled by that group. So you can't necessarily go change the house or change the building dramatically. Now that doesn't stop you from advertising and having, if you're a retail shop, having your windows look really good, but people walk by and understand what you're doing. And we have folks that do that. They're working on it. So I mean, if you compare downtown now to downtown 10 years ago, radically different. I mean, in terms of where it is and the progress that's been made. Would we like it to be further along? Absolutely. But has it made great progress? Absolutely. And so the problem is when it's time lapse like that, people don't really realize it, right? You really need to kind of almost look at photos and say, oh, wow, that building is very different than it was before. But the changes were slow versus, you don't really notice it overnight kind of thing. But yeah, no, I mean, I think there's definitely things we can do to improve town. We got a lot of buildings that still need them. We got across the street, as an example. We've got a lot of buildings that need work. Still that get back online, but a lot of buildings have been brought back online. So we need to keep that progress going. We need to move faster on some. And again, some of that gets down to, where, to your point, your income, where the money comes from to get a building like that back online is not a small amount of money, right? I mean, you're talking, $20 million to finish the build out. So, so you get who's going to come up and who has that kind of money and what kind of return are they going to get after they invest that kind of money into, getting that building back completely ready to operate, right? Because, it's and that number may be high, but it's probably not going to be tremendously high based on the way inflation's going. And every month that goes by, they don't do it. It gets to be more expensive to do. But it's not an inexpensive amount of money to take and, bring these buildings back online. Now, and again, but we've had a lot of them slowly that are coming back online. We just got to keep it going, and if we can accelerate it, great. But to your point, that's important. That's what's got to happen. The town's got to keep rebuilding its image and coming up with new ways. I mean, the waterfront is going to be huge for us. What happens there is going to be huge for branding the city in terms of because that first thing you see when you come across the bridge, your whole concept. People driving to the ocean, what they see there will be huge for what they think about the town and whether they want to stop here or not. And so that'll be important for the work that's happening down there.
Yes, because I think I heard about that project. What was it bringing over there?
Well, they haven't settled on anything yet. So they're working on that now. There's an event tomorrow night for talking about branding for the site. And then they're going to open up a website for comments on their site plan, the preliminary site plan that they put together. But until you actually get developers locked and loaded, you won't really know what's going to go there, right? But they've got concepts in terms of what they want it to look like, and they want more public input. They've gotten some public input. They want more on that in terms of, because that's that type of waterfront doesn't exist anywhere else, right? Deep water on it's second deepest port in Maryland. perfect waterfront view right on Route 50.
Yeah.
Right. So, I mean, it's got the visibility of, that over 30 some thousand cars a day in the summer going to, traveling back and across. So a lot of visibility for that spot. So you want people to be able to do whatever we do there is keenly important to the success of the city.
Yeah. Okay.
And the county for that matter.
Yeah, that does make sense. Well, I guess for my little input, it'd be cool to see like something for the arts over there as well, or maybe like make it look somewhat a little more, I guess, somewhat modern, more modern. Because I will say, around here, it is like you said, it is a historic town, and a lot of us, like me, don't understand that history, yes, has to stay preserved. And I guess now that I learned, can't really alter buildings way too much. Got to keep certain things.
Historic buildings, right?
Yes,
and there are a lot of historic buildings, but not all of them are. So it's not a historic building. Do whatever you want, but within reason. You still have to get approved by the Planning and Zoning Commission for what you want to get done. But history is part of the charm and attraction for tourists coming here, right?
Yes.
And tourists is a big income for the city and the county in terms of tourists that come to the area, and they're coming because of the history. So it's important to not completely lose that. And other cities and towns have seen and learned from that, where they basically they destroy. And there's a gentleman that does a presentation, and he goes to a spot where there used to be this really cool historic house, and now it's a plaque. Because they tore it down, and now they have a plaque about this, and so he's like, they destroy the history. Now you can't get it back. So you got to think through it. That doesn't mean you save everything, right? They're just some things. And I mean, then obviously this building across the street's been a huge debate for a lot of folks in terms of whether it should or shouldn't be. But if once you do tear it down, it's gone. You can't rebuild. You can rebuild something that looks like it, but it isn't it. It's not, basically from a historical perspective, it's not so you got to make good decisions about whether you do or don't, right? And there needs to be some thought process in that and community involvement in it. But history is important to the town, the heritage that we're here. Obviously, working waterfront, shipbuilding's been big, in terms of things that have happened here. Agriculture, the seafood industry, those are all things that attract folks to come here, because we don't want to lose we don't have enough. 32,000 is not enough to sustain the county. We need tourists coming in, spending their disposable income here to help keep the area going as well.
Yeah. So, because on that note, because I am looking at time, and I'm like, oh Lord, we're not over, but we're winding down a little bit.
Cool.
So, what I was thinking mostly was, I guess in the space of that historical building talk, like, well, I obviously know downtown's a really big historical spot, and then that Brick Road is also very historic. I guess we're like, I'm trying to think what type of areas could be more done, but then it's like I don't really know where else people would want to go, because sure, there's a lot of areas around here, but it feels like not all of them are utilized that greatly, I guess. But I don't know what to say about that.
No, we got a lot of work to do. I mean, there's a lot of money coming in to work on the Pine Street district, the High Street Pine corridor, and working on that. There's a lot of funding coming to DHCD that's been a neglected area for a long time to bring that back to life and get repair on those houses or build new houses, build new homes, build new businesses back up to get that done. We have way too many rentals. We're a large rental community. We've got to shift to home ownership, more home ownership, not 100% home, because it's always going to be rentals, but our rental percentage is too high. I mean, you've heard people talk about that. So we need to work on that and get more folks in a position to be in home ownership. In terms of doing that, I mean, in terms of the city, there are lots of places. I mean, there's a lot of building happening right now. There's lots of. I mean, so the 2008 boom, when it happened, there was some. I forget the exact number, but it was north of 3,000 homes that were slated to be built at that time. When the crash happened, and all those properties just sat until now. Now what you're seeing is a lot of those are starting back up. So we're getting new, so we'll have new homes for folks to be able to move in and bring people into the community. I mean, the Hyatt's starting to build again. The Fairchilds are up there. That property, that's going to be cool to see those houses start to build on that property again, to get it to come to where the visions for where it was going to be. It's great property now, and the Hyatt's a great resource for the community, but having the neighborhood there and the houses will be great. But you'll see there's building happening all over town.
Yes, I will say I noticed that.
I mean, the housing boom thing because of with COVID, everybody wanted to exit the urban areas and
Yes.
get to rural areas. We're close to DC, Baltimore, and Philly, right? So we were at an exodus from those areas because people can still get back to those places to work if they need to. So I think that'll help a lot. Those are tax paying, property tax paying folks that are moving into the area that'll actually bring additional income into the city to get the city to be able to do more. They'll bring more disposable income into the shops and the stores, and basically it will create a more vibrant community just by that happening. But that takes time, right? Those don't happen overnight. Those houses take a year or more to build. Then you got to get them sold. You got to get people moved into them. They got to get comfortable being here. So I think you'll see that start to happen over the next several years with that influx of people and income coming in.
All right. Yes. So that's awesome. As I look at the time, I think it is a good area to wind down on that. I will say that was a very enjoyable talk. We had a lot of different points there.
Sure.
So yeah, I mean, I guess that was your little closing statement. I won't ask of any more from you.
Cool.
So yes, everyone, that is this episode of Flodo. This one being more geared towards the income side. I know. Remember, if you want to be a guest, just contact me on the links or wherever. You can use my email or whatever. And thanks again, Bill, for coming in for this episode. And I will catch you guys next time. See ya.